right, one type of wheel that's out there when you're doing cup wheel grinding is called the bi-grit wheel or the tri-grit wheel. You see this more in super abrasives, but let's take a look at what that means. So here is a cup wheel in conventional abrasives, aluminum oxide. Most of my work with cup wheels involves using diamond on carbide, but the principle applies regardless. And let's take a look at what actually happens when you do cup wheel grinding. Now there's all different types of cup wheel grinding. Inserts have a certain style of doing things. Various other grinding operations have a different style. One style is where you take a fixed depth of cut and you traverse. You come back, you take a fixed depth of cut, you traverse, you come back. Now there's a couple of varieties of these. The first variety is what I would call single doink grinding, where you go doink, doink, doink. The second type is what I would call double doink grinding. Doink, 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 doink. And then you could even argue there is single doink spark out style. Doink, doink, doink. Now you have to have a handle on what actually happens when you do these different types. And it's actually not a pretty picture. I'm not really a fan of how this plays out in terms of how it wears the wheel away and beats it up. And let's take a look at what happens when we do that type of grinding. So imagine we've trued our wheel truly flat, right there, and we take a single doink depth of cut, let's say could be 50 microns, it could be half a mil, it could be anything. Doink. Now when we do that, all the grinding occurs on the outer diameter, OD, of the wheel. It doesn't occur on the bottom face. It occurs on the OD. And when you think about the contact area is super small, so we're beating the hell out of the wheel right here. If we're doing it single doink, we're going doink, beating the hell out of the wheel, doink, beating the hell out of the inside of the wheel, doink, beating the hell out of the outside of the wheel and the inside of the wheel. So let's take a look at how that actually plays out. So let's draw a cup wheel. Let's do a super abrasive cup wheel. So here is our abrasive area. We'll draw it like that. There's our center line. This is our abrasive area with diamond and a resin bond, diamond and a vid bond, diamond and a metal bond, whatever. And now we go to grind our workpiece. Now if we're doing single doink, here's our workpiece coming along. And that workpiece is going to bang right there on the side. He gets to the other side. If we do a double doink grinding, all that grinding is going to occur on the OD. So what happens is we beat the hell out of the wheel here, and if we're doing double doink, we beat the hell out of the wheel there. Now most grinding is single doink, so we'll focus on single doink. So we're going to beat the hell out of the wheel with a super high aggressiveness and a super high grit penetration depth. So what's going to happen? This guy is going to wear away like that. Now the grinding action moves from the OD to this taper surface. So that's where all the material is removed, and then this part of the wheel gives us a good surface finish and a good dimension, good part size. So we could say this is the roughing portion of the wheel, and that's the finishing part of the wheel. And in fact, what I do is I suggest to some of my customers to true in a taper and use a little bit of trigonometry and figure out what that angle should be to true in. So we do most of the grinding there and then we finish there. That's what I recommend that my customers do. So what happens is our wheel is busting in, busting in, busting in, and then there comes a point where our wheel shape actually looks like this. And all the finishing action on the wheel is occurring right here. Well, that's no good because now we're going to get swirl marks and bad surface finish and bad size. So then we got to go true the wheel and start the madness again. And even if we true in a taper like I suggest, we still are eventually going to encroach on that. Okay? Now that brings me to the tri-grit wheel. So the tri-grit wheel is a little different. And the tri-grit wheel has 3 sections. We have a section with big grits. In this case, it was 150 mesh diamonds. Then we have a section with medium-sized grits. In this case, it was a 400 mesh. And then we have a section that has super fine grit. And what I did was I took this cup wheel, I stuck it on a little bed, put a dial gauge on there, and I measured the height after it's been grinding for a while. So this was after grinding, and I measured the height of the cup wheel, and I got all these little data points. Plotted them in Excel, and that's what I see. Now, why is the tri-grit wheel good? Well, some people say, oh, the tri-grit wheel is good because the 1200 mesh gives us a better surface finish at the end. And that's true, and that's a good argument, and that's reasonable. But one of the main benefits of the tri-grit wheel is that when we approach the workpiece like this, now this guy originally looked like that. We busted this out, but the nice thing is we didn't true this taper, we didn't true this flat, but look what happened. We've got a flat right there. And why do we have that flat? We have that flat because that 1200 mesh is so weak, it wears away so quickly because the grits are so small that what happens is we develop a natural flat right there. So now we always have a flat on the wheel to give us a good surface finish. And then ideally what will happen is, as this guy wears away, he's going to continue to wear away like that, and we're never going to get that point factor. We're always going to get the flat on there. And what's that flat going to do for us? That flat's going to give us a good surface finish. It's going to give us better size holding, and it's always going to be flat. So that's why I am a believer, in some cases, in using a tri-grit wheel if you're doing single doink grinding. Technical term being single doink. If you're doing double doink grinding, it's not going to work. Why is it not going to work? Because now you're going to start grinding on this side. These 1200 mesh grits are so weak, you're going to break away to that. So make sure you know what you're doing in terms of single doink or double doink. But if you do, I am a believer in tri-grit wheels, if you know what you're doing.